All right, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Date Your Wife podcast. My name is Garrett J. I'm your co-host here with the beautiful, wonderful, fantastic queen, my wife, Danielle K. White. Danielle, I changed your name to what? Danielle K. White. I added your middle initial here years ago. How do you feel about this? Because you named your entire salon DKW after doing this. How do you feel about this?
That's cute that you think that you named that because I came up with the initials. Or I didn't come up with the initials. Those are my initials.
You're going to need to talk straight into your microphone.
I'm the one that named my brand DKW Styling.
Okay, well, I was the one that started calling you Danielle K. White, which then led to DKW Styling. Is this accurate, yes or no?
No, you started calling me Danielle K. White after.
I started calling you Danielle K. White after you had built DKW Styling?
Yeah, I had already decided on that name. And then, like, when you came out with Garrett J. White and you're really specific with Garrett J. White, all of a sudden you brought out Danielle K. White.
Yeah, so you're not giving me any credit for this Danielle K. White thing?
I'm going to give it to my parents. Sorry.
I was figuring you were going to go there. Like, eventually it had to go back to your mom. She's the one that named you. Mm-hmm. So, welcome to the show. If you're new here to the show, you haven't listened to this episode number, I believe number 8. It's episode number 8. We're heading down the path here again with another conversation in this traumatic and dramatic game of why are you touching my dials?
Can I just turn the volume?
I'd like you to touch my dials, but you're not those dials.
I just want to turn the volume down on my headphones because I have a little bit of a
How's this work?
Headache today.
Does this feel fine?
Wait, talk?
Like you're
okay,
literally
that's better.
You're
that's
like
better.
You're jacking the show up here.
No, I'm ready to go.
No, you're not talking into your microphone. I'm going to sound louder than you again. Then we're going to get people complain about the audio.
Oh my god!
Talking to the microphone.
I feel like I'm eating the microphone.
Well, you feel like you're eating the microphone because you ate chips coming into the studio to start today's show.
I'm hungry.
Okay,
let's start it off. Let's do this.
We're here. We're finally officially getting into it. So, anyways, back into this conversation. We're getting back on topic. We launched this show. I'm going to ask you, why did we launch this show? This is number 8. Why did we launch Date Your Wife, the podcast? We just got back from Maui, Hawaii. Just something to do. You were bored.
I was like,
You're like, get my eyelashes done, get my nails done, or launch a podcast.
I think eventually something will come out of this.
You don't think something's coming out of this already?
No, I think something is, but I think a lot of people, it's like, you've built up your following, I built up my following, you built up your business, I built up mine, then we worked together, and then I was like, I think people would always hear of this mystery person. And
you were a mystery. Nobody in Wake Up Warrior knew who you were. Some people even questioned whether you existed. That I had actually made you up.
People would often ask on my Instagram, "Are you married?" I was like, "Yeah."
Yeah, you know why they didn't ask? They asked if you were married.
Because I didn't have any pictures of you.
Exactly.
I don't have any
pictures. Fucking pictures of me on the Instagram.
You're so bitter about that. You need to get over it.
For years, you don't put me on the Instagram.
I didn't like you for years, so get over yourself. You know what? I didn't put my kids on my Instagram either because
you didn't like them either?
No, I don't consider myself a mommy blogger, and I'm very protective of my kids. So
are you anti-mommy blogger? Like, are you against mommies who blog?
No, I'm not against it.
What is a mommy blogger?
It's a mommy blogger is just like you're a mom and you blog about mommy stuff.
Like diapers.
No,
going to the store.
Anything. It's
squeezy packs for kids.
It's like your career is mommy blogging.
Your career is mommy blogging.
Yeah.
But you did not want to be a mommy blogger because you had some other things going on.
No, I enjoy, I just didn't want to blog about my kids. Got it. I feel like it's important to blog about like stuff you enjoy reading, and I don't enjoy reading kid stuff. I love my kids. I just don't enjoy reading other people's mommy blogs.
Is there such thing as a wifey blog?
Yeah, now it's just called fashion blogs. I feel like every wife out there is like now a fashion blogger.
Like what? She makes her husband take pictures of her all the time.
That, and then it's just like the whole idea of fashion blogging like really took off for moms. I'm just gonna say it.
It did. It gave moms purpose.
Yeah, it's like, hey, something to do, make a little extra cash.
Not a problem. So we're gonna have listeners that are gonna be mommy bloggers. Listen, if you're a mommy blogger, you are a wifey blogger, or you're a man, you're listening to the show, you're part of the Wake Up Warrior movement, or you're one of the followers inside of our game with MBR Tribe, you're part of our tribe members over there in the hair industry, or you're in the financial services world with me and Warrior Wealth and all of our teams over in that area, whatever aspect of business you may be part of, involved with us, or whether you're here for the very first time, here's what I can promise you. In today's show, we're going to talk about parenting. And we change up the topics every single week here inside the show. One week, we talk about sex. That's my favorite one. We've already done that twice here in our roundup. We talk about on that week after about money, which we do. I like that topic also. We've already discussed that one. And this week, we're going to go into parenting. This will be our second conversation here in the podcast about parenting. We talked a little bit about spanking last time. But on this topic of parenting, we just came back from a little trip. Tell us about this trip that we just came back from.
We went to Maui for a whole week, hun. Good job.
My whole fucking week. Why was this a big deal to go for a whole week?
You sound really angry about that.
Well, no, it was fantastic. Not like a whole fucking week. Like, that's how I initially would have felt about it. It turned out to be good. We're going to talk about this today.
I feel like we have a close little family.
Okay, so why was this a big deal to go to Hawaii for the first 7 days? Because you and I did not exactly have a positive connection to the state of Hawaii.
We didn't?
No. Well, maybe I didn't. I didn't have a positive experience with Hawaii.
Oh, really?
Nope. Didn't like it.
Ever?
Never. Didn't like Hawaii. Had a wonderful time in Hawaii with you this time. Do you know why I didn't like Hawaii?
Because we went with my family?
Nah, okay, part of that was we went with your family, but that's not because, like, it's not that I was against your family. It's like so much as it was that going to Hawaii created problems for me. It's why most men struggle with going on vacation with their family.
Is it just because, like, you are not working?
So that's part of it. So working gives me purpose, right? Going on vacation was really hard for me.
Doesn't give you purpose?
No, it's not that it doesn't give me purpose. It was hard for me. Do you want to know why it was hard for me?
I think it would be hard. It would be like, imagine. I think I had this conversation with you the other day, like, if you're an athlete for so many years and all of a sudden you retire and then you're like, oh, now what do I do? I'm used to going like 1,000,000 miles an hour and now somebody's telling me that I should take time off and I'm supposed to be okay with that, and you actually go the opposite direction and you're like in this weird funk, I would imagine.
Yeah, well, it was really tough. Like, so work was hard to slow down from. That was one thing. The other thing that was hard for me is that when I was at home, I had my patterns and I also had my ability to distract myself with work so that I didn't think about having sex with you every 5 minutes. And then when we would go on vacation... Is
that normal? Do you think when guys are on vacation with their wives... I mean, I know you're like a highly sexual man, but like, do you think...
I'm a very normal man.
Okay.
The only men who are not highly sexual are men who are older who cannot get directions.
That's what I'm asking. Is it normal for men to want to have sex every 5 minutes?
I believe it is. I mean, here's the thing. I don't want to have sex every 5 minutes when I have a lot going on. But when I'm on vacation and my wife is gorgeous and she's in a bikini and she's lying on the beach and we're in Hawaii and I don't got shit else to do, I lay there and I think about sex every 5 minutes. And so every 5 minutes I'm thinking about having sex.
That's why you started surfing.
But I didn't. I should have surfed a long time ago. But I didn't surf a long time ago. That's why Hawaii was hard for me. Did you know this?
I think it's important.
Because we always fought about this on vacation.
I think it's important to have hobbies. When I'm on vacation, I shop. I could lay there on the beach.
And shop on your phone.
And shop on my phone. And it's like, the sun's hitting me. I can get up and play with the kids for a minute. Then they can play. Then I can shop. It's such a good balance.
Are you ever thinking, I'd like to have sex with that man? Looking at me and not some other random man. I mean me.
It's hard because...
on vacation in Hawaii. Did you ever have this? Did you have this thought in Maui while we were there? Be honest. Straight with us. Did you have a thought about this? Like, I want to seriously give it to that guy right now.
Yeah, sometimes, but I'll tell you when it really happened. When you put that floaty on...
You were turned on by this. You were hoping I'd be naked with the floaty.
We had this like giant floaty in Maui that was so funny. Me and my girls would go. I was clearly too big for the floaty, and if I'm too big for the floaty, you can only imagine.
You're too big for the floaty. What are you talking about? You fit right in it.
It's a child-sized floaty, and but it was cute. I didn't care. I like to have fun with my kids, so we'd go sit on it and let the waves throw us around. And then I'm like, Garrett, you go. And he's a lot bigger than me. He's 6'2". I'm 5'3".
200 pounds. You're like 5 pounds, or 112 pounds, 15 pounds.
Close enough.
All right, right in there, 115 pounds.
So I go out with the kids, and it already looks silly. Then he goes out, and he's a big dude. I'm like, that inner tube is fully going to sink. And then I see him, and then he comes in, and he's got it around his waist, and I'm thinking, like, oh, my God, it's stuck. I think it is stuck. And he's, like, prancing in, and I was like, oh, no, it's not stuck. He likes it.
I felt like I was, like, Captain Lifeguard, save the day.
And then he stands there, and he puts his hands on his hips, and I was like,
that's right.
You want a photo, don't you? And he's like, no. And he's like, yeah, I do.
So I had you. So you became an Instagram wife there for a second and took some pictures of me.
Like it.
I like getting pictures of myself with the inner tube around me. Okay, so you're joking around. You weren't actually turned on then. Is there ever a time when you're in Hawaii, you're just watching me, you're just like, that guy? I just want to give it to him.
Specifically in Hawaii?
Yeah. Did you ever have this thought one time in 7 days?
Parenting show.
It is, but it always going to come around to sex because that's what the guys want to hear. The guys want to hear this, and then we'll move on.
Maybe this is for a lot of girls, and I don't know if you're like this. When your husband comes up to you and is like, "You like that? I look hot." You're like, "No, fucking no." But when you're not paying attention and you just look cute, or you're playing with the kids,
did that happen?
I don't know if women are like.
Did this happen for you in Maui?
I'm sure it did.
This moment where you were like, I literally am giving it to that guy later tonight.
It's not like that per se.
It never happens that way.
Well, you shut up. It's like for a girl, maybe Maybe sometimes you're like, I'm going to rip his pants off. But usually
Have you ever had that
oh my God, shut up. Usually what it is, are you going to let me finish? Yes. Holy smokes. Usually what it is, you'll see him walk by and you just kind of like get a little bit of like the butterflies and you're like, ooh, he's cute. And it's more of like the romance or like the courtship or like, oh, I'm so glad he's so cute with the kids. It's very rarely.
But it's not 50 Shades of Grey. I want to be like handcuffed in the bedroom. You don't get that thought?
Oh my God, no. Let's move on.
Okay. Well, listen, all of this talk in Hawaii about connecting and being in the game, it actually is very relevant. Although you think it's not relevant. Here are the facts. Without sex, there is no babies. And today's topic is about babies and talking about the conversation of parenting. And we're going to specifically look at a couple ideas. First, we're going to look at the idea of parenting and vacations. And then we're going to look at this idea of differing parental strategies when it comes to dealing with discipline.
Okay, really quick.
Yes.
There's a lot of times where I feel like, I'm sure everybody feels this way. You're like, oh, I could be a better mom. I could be a better husband. I could be whatever. But I will say, and I'm sure you noticed this as well, when we were in Hawaii.
Yeah.
We were just sitting down having dinner one night. And this lady who wasn't even our server, she was a server at the restaurant, came up to us. And she was like, hey, you guys are the cutest family. She's like, and you know what? You genuinely like can tell you're like, I don't know what she said. She's like, you're connected and you want to hang out and like be together. And she's like, and that's such a rare quality to see nowadays with family just having dinner. And I was like, oh. So I think despite everybody, like, I mean, we all always are like, especially with both you and I working, I face a lot of like that mommy guilt with parenting and that. It's nice to hear something like that because it's always like quality time versus quantity sometimes. And I do feel like we're super close to our little family. You know what I mean? So I was like,
it's hard to compare sometimes, right?
Yeah, it's hard to see. But so when somebody else sees it from an outside perspective and they can just feel the energy of your family and they can feel like, it's nice to hear that. You're like, oh, well, despite whatever, if I think I'm doing right or wrong, like, I just feel like we have a cute little close family. And I think that taking vacations such as Hawaii, even though they're hard for you, I think a lot of times family vacations, they're not for the husband getting laid. They're about like reconnecting with the family, and it creates, I remember as a kid it creating these like crazy memorable experiences of like pattern or like routines of going to Hawaii or traditions or whatever you want to call it. And I remember as a kid, sometimes family vacations, they're not the funnest for the adults sometimes.
Right.
Especially if you have young kids, like let's just put it out there, like kids can be like crazy little assholes, especially if they're under like 4. You try to go to dinner and you're just like, God, give me a glass of wine so I can ignore my child jumping out of his seat right now. So I think that regardless if like it's always the funnest for the parents, when you look at the overall experience and the quality of time that you had with your family while on vacation, you're kind of like, oh, cool. You know, and I think that's why I push so hard for vacations is because I know you said you didn't vacation a lot when you were little, and I didn't vacation a ton, but we had probably 2 or 3 traditional vacations every year, and I just remember looking forward to them so much, and some of my funnest memories are those family vacations. So.
I agree. Our biggest memories in vacation when I was a kid came down to traveling for family reunions. Like, that was it. Like, every summer we would travel. We would go to Utah to my grandma and grandpa's house. I lived in a place called Perry, Utah. And we would go there for vacation. We'd drive in from California or drive in from Washington for the family reunion. And we could hang out with everyone. We didn't get to go do cool stuff like, go to Hawaii and things like this. Like, that wasn't happening. But we loved it. We loved the trips. I loved the routines. And I saw this, I saw this happen last week on vacation too. But before we get to the vacation side, I'm going to come back on another topic that you brought up here, which is the guilt side of the game, right? The guilt and feeling the shame being a parent. Now I can speak about it from being a man. I can tell you as a businessman, this is one of the big killers. As a father, particularly if you have a business or have multiple businesses you're running and you're very busy and with what you do and how you build, there's a constant toggle between how do I deal with the guilt inside of me as a man, and how do I deal with the shame that I feel at times with not showing up as a husband, or even showing up but feeling like at times you don't show up in a way that is actually connected, or a way that makes you feel good. And this was one of the big struggles I had as a parent, was this inability for me to not constantly feel guilty. I always felt guilty, like if I was at work, I felt guilty. If I was at home, I was feeling guilty because I wasn't at work. Like I was feeling this guilt all the time. And I don't know how much of this came from the culture that I was raised in. I was raised in the Mormon culture, something my wife and I have not been practicing for about a decade. And yet inside of that culture, and we've come to find that same feeling exists in a lot of very intense religious cultures, there's a lot of guilt. And the guilt that I was feeling as a father was that I was letting down my children. And I got stuck in this story for a couple of years where I was convinced that everything I was doing was fucking my kids up. Like, it didn't really matter what I was doing. Like, whatever I was doing, I was fucking my kids up. Like, I was messing up their future because I wasn't spending enough time playing LOL dolls, or I wasn't building Legos long enough, or I wasn't spending, and I was trying to find this balance for me as a man in how do I actually balance what I do at work, and how do I balance what I do with my children. Now, I'm going to keep talking about this subject, but I'd love to hear your thoughts on kind of the initial stages of this, because I hear you reference the mommy guilt factor, and I don't think mommy guilt is something that exists just for women who are professionals also.
No, yeah, it goes for all moms, I would say, whether you work or you don't. I just feel like balance is key, I would say.
Yeah, but talk about the guilt. Don't talk about the solution to the guilt. Talk about moments you felt guilty as a mom. Have you felt this? Because you do a good job of reframing things, but
I think I said this on our last parenting podcast, but I remember it was harder. You know, I'm a young mom, and it was harder when my kids were littler. I think as you get older and your kids get older, you're like, what the fuck was I stressing about? And so I remember thinking when my oldest is 11 now, and I remember thinking when she was like 5, like I was like, she has gone crazy. I don't know who she is. I can't, she won't do anything I say, and I can't get her to do things, and she wasn't my cute little toddler anymore, and she's all sassy, and I was like, oh, and I was stressed out, and I was like, and I'm not spending that much time with her, and I was just going through a lot in my head. And I remember just kind of this voice kind of came to me and just said let go, let go. It's fine. She was never your kid to really control, just kind of lead by example. And for me, I feel like because I was facing the mommy guilt, I was always trying to micromanage and always be there. And I was like, I just need to chill out. And then the other thing I realized too is, it's so funny. I think it finally actually hit me this year because I have another daughter who, Ruby, she's 6. And I remember because I only am at the salon working 2 days a week, and then I have them in daycare at school. And I'd always feel this rush, oh my God, I need to go pick them up, and I got to spend this quality time with them. And I'd go to pick them up, and Bailey would be doing her sports or her activities after school, and the youngest would be in daycare. And I'd go to pick up the youngest, and she'd be like, oh, Mom, can I stay? And I'm thinking, how sad. She hasn't seen me all day, and she wants to stay and play with her friends. But I was kind of you know what? That's fine. If she wants to stay and play with her friends, and then at night we go into the routine and we do dinner and we do homework and spend time, and that's just how it is. Because if I pick her up at school at 2 or 3 and then we go home, it's not like we're spending quality time. Usually I'm trying to get stuff done with work, and she's just playing Barbies in her playroom. And so I was kind of well, why don't I just let her stay at school where she can kind of interact and get that social interaction at school? Because we live in a neighborhood where there's not a lot of kids, and that's kind of an after school play date for her. And so I was I just need to let go. She wants to be at school. I don't have to be there. I don't I think I had this guilt oh, I'm a full-time working mom, which I was kind of I am, but I'm not. I'm only in the salon 2 days a week. So I kind of the guilt for me was just learning how to kind of balance it, and also learn to let go, and kind of quality versus quantity, I guess.
So how do you mentioned this idea of letting the kids stay at school, which comes down to this topic of daycare and this topic of babysitters. And I think is a good one for us to segue into around the idea of guilt. We're going to keep coming around this guilt and shame idea, and this mommy guilt and this daddy guilt that exists. We hear about mommy guilt all the time, but I promise you a shitload of dad guilt that happens, and guys do not deal with this very well. I'm going to give you some tips on that here in today's show, and how to start dealing emotionally with the guilt, which I actually learned from Danielle. lifestyle, but have also been supportive inside of a book called The Warrior Book. And if you're listening to the show for the first time and you're a man and you have not gotten access to this amazing, powerful manual and tool, I would encourage you to head on over to warriorbook.com and you can pick up a copy of that book today, and it'll start guiding you down a powerful tool known as a stack, which has set me free inside of the way I feel with this guilt and shame around my kids. Now, there was one of the frustrating pieces for me was being able to take my wife on dates, and it was not happening, and we were constantly being held hostage by this ability for Danielle's parents or her sister or someone else to watch our kids. And so I started pushing really hard as a man for babysitters. I started pushing hard for nannies and individuals to come in and some part-time help, full-time help. Danielle, talk to me about this, because you were not really comfortable. Initially enough, there's far more women than I ever anticipated who are absolutely uncomfortable with the idea of leaving their children with anyone but like Grandma Ruby.
It's not just, I think the women have a hard time taking time for themselves. And so if the idea, and like what little time they have, they don't want to, maybe like they feel guilty spending away from their kids sometimes. I mean, I don't know, I'm sure all women are a little bit different, but do you think it's a guilt thing? Like, do you think it's a, did you feel guilty? I think it's a money thing too. I just talked to a lot of women who like can't justify the cost, and their husbands are kind of like maybe run the money card. I don't really know. And then they like, it's just like both of the couples like just decide it's okay to never do a date night. I remember do you think it's a financial justification, or do you think it's a guilt thing? I think because there's a lot of couples that I think it's a financial thing, and it's not even that they can't afford it. That's just the story they decide to tell themselves. Like, date night's expensive. We can't put that into the budget. And who would I trust to watch my kids? Like, the whole idea, like everything about it is just stressful. Like, they're like, especially if you have young kids, you're like, okay, I don't trust people to watch my little 2-year-old. And then, is that not working?
No, just locking it in for you.
And then you're like, I don't trust people to watch my little 2-year-old. They're thinking like 2 and 3. They're like just crazy all over the place. You're like, I don't trust them. And then you're like, so you're already kind of like really nervous, and then you're thinking like the whole time you're out on date night, and this goes for like young moms, the whole time you're on date night, you're like, okay, oh my God, we just spent like a couple $100. I'm stressed out. This isn't even fun. Because I remember feeling that way as a young mom. And then it like, but I kind of was like, you know what, I just need to chill out. Everything's fine. And then the more you do it, it's not that big of a deal. I know like some people will even say like, well, I'll just have my parents watch them. And they're like, that way we don't have to pay for a babysitter. And I'm like, that's a nice excuse. It's because you don't really trust anybody else to watch your kids. And in my experience, no offense.
Do you think it's a trust or it's a cheap bastard thing?
I think it's a trust thing too. I was going to say, no offense. Like even though I love my mom and I've had her watch the kids, like there was times when my kids were littler that like I was like, I feel more comfortable paying somebody because I know they're just going to be like on them 24/7. My mom said 6 kids, and she's just like, whatever, you want to go ride your bike outside? That's fine. I'm like, Mom, times are different. We live in California. We don't let our kids ride their bikes out on PCH, but thank you. So I think it's funny. I think it's a trust thing. I think it's a cheap thing. Like a lot of times I know for girls, they're thinking, especially maybe if they're not working, they might be thinking, okay, well, it's a couple $100 for date night. And if we did that like twice a week, and that's like say $1,000 on date nights, like, oh my God, like I would never spend $1,000 on myself on like, if you're into clothes or shoes or whatever, like I am, you'd be like in your head, you're thinking, I would never spend, whether it's clothes or shoes or whatever it is, you're like, I would never spend $1,000 on myself for the month. And so we as women always, I think, take on that expense as not a couple expense, but it's like, you know what I mean? Like,
you think, so did you take that on as a woman? Like you were like, this is like an expense that I'm incurring?
Well, yeah, and almost like, well, I could use that money towards something else, and we should put it into the kids, and we should take that money and put it into kids' sports, or we need it for this, or we need it for that, and you know what I mean? And it's not like a part of the budget. It's just like this story that they operate on that's like, we can't afford it. And I'm like, I'm sorry, I don't care what your financial situation is. Like, you can afford it. And I think the more you do it, the easier it becomes. And all those moms that like think, I get it, like you're stressed out, you don't trust anybody to watch your 2-year-old, but like you can't live your life like that. You can't live your life and just think, I'll never have time alone, I'll never go on vacation without my kids, I'll never be able to travel, and then when my kids are 20, then I'll do it. I see so many people like that kind of get lost in that they think, well, I chose to be a mom, so here's what I'm going to do. And when they're older, then I can have my freedom. The problem is then they finally have their freedom and they're fucking lost and they didn't find any purpose for themselves. And then all of a sudden they're freaking out and then they're creating drama in their older kids' lives so that they feel that they have purpose. And so I think whether you're a working mom or not, it's important to let go and allow some time for yourself and allow time with your children.
So what I'm hearing then is this is a guilt conversation around money, but it's also a guilt around a guilt, and it's also a fear. There's fear and guilt mixed into this as a woman. There's fear around having your children with somebody else. There's guilt around spending the money on yourself and you as a couple. And all of this is sourced by a story that somehow the best parenting I can offer my children is to not spend alone time with my spouse.
Yeah.
Like, isn't that interesting? We were sitting in Maui, and I was talking to this couple that was there, and it was the very first time. They were from Indiana. They were at the luau. They were at the luau dinner with us. We were there with our kids.
Do they have kids?
Yeah, they have kids. They had 3 children. That was the first time in 13 years
they
had taken a vacation without their children.
Right.
They had never gone on vacation together in 13 years without their kids. And you don't think it's crazy. You would think that that's an anomaly. That is not the anomaly.
That's not.
That's like the fucking
crazy.
standard.
I know.
Like, listen, if you want, like, imagine, look at how ridiculous this is. Like, imagine. So here's the strategy. You have children, and when you're young and vital and have all this energy, etc., you're fitter. You're having more fun. Like, you're more youthful. You can do more. You don't go on vacation with each other as a couple without your kids. You go only with your kids. And then when you get older and you're in your late 50s and your early 60s and your late 60s, then you go when you can't physically do half the shit you could have done when you were in your 30s and 40s.
Well,
and now your kids are all older, you're exhausted and tired, and you're disconnected from each other. And that is literally 90% of the couples lying around the Four Seasons Resort in Miami.
That's what I was going to say. Like,
it was fucking disgusting.
You finally decide to go on vacation without your kids, only to realize you're like, create chaos while you're on vacation because you don't have your kids there with you. You're like,
you're bored. You have nothing.
You're bored.
What would you do with each other?
You're like, oh my God, like we've never been alone. And so I think it's important, if you're a young parent listening to this show right now, like start doing it now. You don't need to wait till your kids are like 10 or 5 or whatever it is.
Keep going.
But I just think it's important to kind of create that. Like, I just decided a long time ago, just because I have kids doesn't mean I can't, like, live my life. So if I want to work, I'm going to work. And I always wanted to be a mom. Like, I always did. You know what I mean? But I didn't want to be just a mom. I wanted to have my own...
Women get pissed off when other women say that.
Some do, but I know a lot don't. And I don't mean to, like, disrespect moms who are not working. Like, I think they maybe have other ways where they find balance in your life. They maybe are... They're a part of their community or their church or something. You know what I mean? Like, there's a lot of women that don't work that are involved in other things. I just think it's important to have something other than just being a mom. Because in my experience, like, I've seen a lot of women, like, I mean, I guess I can't say in my experience because my kids aren't, like, grown up and married yet. But, like, I've seen a lot of women that their kids leave and they're in this, like, funk. You know? Like, that was their purpose their whole life.
That was literally,
and then they feel like it's too late to start anything for themselves. They're like, well, I'm like 50 now, so like it's too late in the game for me to start something, and I'm not going to go back to work at Nordstrom's or Target or wherever. You know what I mean? They're just kind of like, and then some do. Some are like, no, I need some purpose. I don't even need the money. I just need some purpose, and so then maybe they go back to work. So I just think it's important as a mom to balance the whole guilt thing, and it's important to understand that, like, living by example, leading by example, and just do what is right for you and what works for you.
Okay, so we're gonna do a little summary here on this topic because we got here on this topic on this idea of guilt, and this is literally what led us to this place of talking about vacations and talking about going on vacation with your spouse and the guilt that a person ends up feeling over and over and over, and women are feeling, and the ultimate story that used to work and only worked because everybody believed it was that as a woman, your sole calling in life was to fulfill the needs of your children and your husband. Now, what this led to was an example inside of my family with my mother, which my mother played that game for 30 plus years, and her entire commitment was to raise us children, which I thank God every single day my mother was so committed to who she was, a woman. She was in Maui with us. They live in Kona, Hawaii. We flew them over for the day. They hung out for a day. My mom and I got to spend some great time together talking. But here's my mother in her 60s, and she's redefining who she is again. She's finding herself over. She's like, who am I exactly? And part of the frustration that I've watched happen for her and I've watched happen for tons of couples in their 50s and 60s who are in this place of trying to rediscover if they actually want to be together anymore. Interesting statistic, one of the highest age brackets filing for divorce in the United States of America right now are women between the ages of 50 and 56. Their kids are just getting out of high school. They're just graduating. They're turning and they're looking at this man they're with and they're like, I don't know who the fuck you are. Like, I have literally invested the last 20 years of my life into these children. I don't even know if I want to be with you anymore. And it makes sense because the guy shut down, the woman shuts down, all the focus becomes about the children. And inside of this focus about the children, they begin to lose themselves. And there's this guilt that has to be dealt with along the way. And this guilt of being actually willing to put yourself as a couple before your children. And I would have you consider that the greatest parenting that you can offer your children is to demonstrate great relationship with your partner. Like, fuck everything else that you think you're supposed to teach your children. We have a fucked up society today where couples and relationships are falling apart everywhere. Marriage is no longer the standard. People are not getting married anymore. Marriages are not working. My neighbor on both sides of us in our current development, marriage number 4 in my neighbor to the right, marriage number 3 now currently divorcing in the house next to me. Big money, big opportunity, big business, and divorce is running rampant. And why is it running rampant? Because we have this faulty belief system that says the following, and that is that my marriage must come secondary to the raising of my children, thinking that the raising of my children will somehow happen with more power from a couple that's disconnected, doesn't love each other, is not having sex, is not communicating, is not on fire together, and doesn't go on vacation and spends most of their time under guilt pressure. And, well, results would tell us that that is not working. Results would say that you're full of shit. Results would say that that story needs to die. And Danielle, that's what I'm hearing from you. Is that there has to be a letting go and a priority that's actually given. So much for that Louis Vuitton case, not holding your cell phone up very well.
Yeah, it's a balancing act. And I just know, like, even like as I got more into my career as well, I remember thinking, like, I have 2 kids and I'm like, oh, can I have more kids? Like, I feel like I chose my career. And then I remember even thinking, like, screw it. No, I'm not going to let my career determine if I want more kids. You know, so for me, it was trying to find just more of that balance. And I just decided, like, I'll figure it out along the way. But there's one thing that was true for me, and this is something that we decided when our kids were little, is we're going to go on date nights. We are going to go on family trips. Well, at least I decided I was going to go on family trips, and finally you decided to come along with me.
There was literally a time where she was like, listen, you either come on the vacations with me or I'm going to leave you.
I felt like you would even, like, self-sabotage a little bit and be like I got it, this came up or that, and I was like, oh my God, I get that, like, family vacations, like, there's less sex and it may be less fun when you have little kids, but it's not always about just you and I, or you or I, or it's about, like, family time and kids and just memories for the kids. And so I don't know, I think if you're a young parent, or if you're not, even if you have older kids, like, it's not too late to start taking that time, because I can promise you, like, with anything, it's just, if you put in the time, you're gonna kind of, like, see that back. I mean, your kids are, oh, my daughter's actually calling right now.
I'll go ahead and answer. It's a little parent time.
Okay.
Let's go speaker and let's see what happens.
Okay. Hello?
Hello, we're done.
You're done? Okay, I will be there in 15 minutes.
I'm going to ask you a question, Bailey.
Yeah?
Here's a question. Why do you feel like family vacations are important for moms and dads and for kids together?
Am I on your podcast?
Yes.
Right now?
Yes, you are. You're on our podcast.
Go somewhere quiet so I can actually hear you.
All right, go somewhere quiet. We're going to get real time from Bailey.
Hold on, it's super noisy.
Our 11-year-old's going to give us some real time feedback on this so that we can. We've not preset this. I don't know what she's going to say. She has.
I'm going to end my live video because it's.
Oh, your live video is on there?
Yeah.
All right. Well,
Hold on. Now I got to call Bailey back.
All right, well, you're calling Bailey
live
back.
Time.
Live. All right, so anyways.
I got her.
You got her
Hello?
back.
Hello?
Hi.
Okay, so Bailey, here is the question. You ready?
Yeah.
You're live.
Yeah.
You're live guest artist here on the Date Your Wife podcast.
Oh, like you're literally in the podcast right now?
Yeah.
Literally, we're in the podcast room. Mom's going to put the speaker up here. You're going to go back and listen to the show this week. All right, so listen, here's the question. Why is family vacation so important to you as a child? Like, why do you think... You're not a child, excuse me. You're a young lady. You're 11 going on 18. Talk to me about why was going to Hawaii so much fun for you?
Well, I think it's important because as a kid, or as you said, a young woman, to go on a vacation with your family because, because you guys, no offense, Dad, but you are kind of a workaholic. And, Mom, you're a workaholic for a woman. And if that makes sense, because you work very hard and stuff. So, I think it's important because then you guys get off like your work and you actually get to spend time with us like for a whole week instead of just seeing us after school or like after your date nights or in the morning time.
So here's another question for you.
Does it build memories for you, Bailey?
Yeah.
Okay, here's another question for you. Outside of vacation, talk to me about date night. What do you think as a kid, knowing that mom and dad are so committed to going on date nights every single week? Like, what are thoughts that go on for you as a young lady, not as a young little girl, as a young woman? What are thoughts you have when you see mom and dad going out and mom kissing dad and all of like the me just committing to take mom out all the time? What are your thoughts about this as an 11-year-old?
I think you're a very committed husband because most of my friends, their parents only go on date nights once a month or stuff like that, and they'll make it like a special occasion, but you kind of make it like a special occasion every time you go on a date night, which like every week, twice a week.
What does that tell you you need to expect from a man? When the time comes, I realize that they're disgusting right now and you're not all about that. But when there comes a time that a young man's going to take you out, when you get married, what are you going to expect your husband to do?
Take me on date nights a lot.
I love it. And also, is kissing and hugging, is this okay?
Yeah.
Only when you're married.
You can kiss and hug all you want before you get married. There's some other things we're going to hold off on, though. All right, so you are amazing. Mom will come and coordinate with you. We'll be back to pick you up in a bit.
Okay.
Are you still in play practice?
All right, so those of you who are currently on the live stream and here in studio, we're going to let you go on the live stream. Check out today's episode in Date Your Wife, the podcast. If you're online here and you're watching us or listening to us live on iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or SoundCloud, I've been live streaming on Facebook. Again, if you want to check this out, go check out and subscribe to the podcast found in iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and coming soon to Spotify. You can also get the videos of these shows found at dateyourwifenow.com. I'm going to kill this live stream, and we're going to finish up this show. All right, live stream is done, and your live stream is done. Live streams are done.
Let's close it up.
You don't need to close it up.
I gotta close it up.
You don't got to close it up.
Yeah, I told her I'd be there in 15.
No, the show's got 20 more minutes. You shouldn't have told her 15.
Oh.
They're in daycare, right?
No.
Where are they at?
I don't know.
Just on the street riding bikes with grandma?
Yeah, hopefully.
Okay, we're going to continue down this path. It's an important thing. That was a great little introduction. We had Bailey in there.
Yeah, it was cute.
Okay, how do you feel about that with her? What she said about her friend's parents?
I know, that's so crazy. I think we're an anomaly. I think the fact that we go out once or twice a week, people are like, "Oh my God," and I'm like, "You guys, it could just be like a dinner. Like that's not that big of a deal." Imagine if you had a set sitter every week, and one of the date nights, it was literally just like dinner. Like, do you understand when you have young kids to just not have to cook dinner, to sit down, have a glass of wine, hang out with your husband, even if it's only for like an hour and a half, and have dinner? That could be considered a date, and you could tell the babysitter, "Hey, can you just make sure they get in the shower and feed them?" And by the time they're done, like you can be at home and still connect with them and put them in bed and read stories and whatever you want to do. But it's just like the routine of maybe like shower and dinner is somebody else does for you. Like that's it's so great, and it's not that big of a deal. And then you could do another date night where it's a longer date night, and it's like kind of like you go out later or see a movie or go to whatever you like to do. So I think it's so random when people only go out together like once a week. And I know even when our kids, right now our kids are getting older and we can go sit at dinner and everybody's pretty well behaved. But it's still, the kids demand your attention. You know what I mean? And so even though our kids will just sit there, they want to talk to you. They don't want to be ignored. They want to sit and communicate with their parents and tell them about their day, which is great too. Family dinners are great. However, that's the key element that you're missing when you go on date night. So even if your kids are well behaved and they're older, it's still important to have one-on-one time, because otherwise your kids are going to be grown, you're going to be older, and you're going to be like, oh Jesus, like I have all this time now with my husband and I have no kids, but like we're not connecting. Like what's wrong? And you know, maybe some couples get divorced, and maybe some couples find distraction, or even some moms pour that same energy, instead of pouring it into their spouse, they might pour it back into their kids, even when their kids are grown adults. And it's like at some point you have to like let your kids live, you know?
Yep. Well, I remember there was a woman in a couple in one of our old neighborhoods that we used to live in, and she would, her husband was gone a lot. He was a professional. I was actually a doctor, and he was gone all the time, working, constantly working. And she was with the kids and had full-time nanny support, but there was this slow dying that was going on in this woman. It was interesting because like she would cling to me and to Danielle with this almost desperation. And this weird, she would see us go out and our kids, we go pick our kids up and say, we need to go. And we're going out on date night. And she'd be like, oh my God, you're going out again and again, and you're going out again. And I would see it in her eyes, this pain of, why does my husband not do this? Like, why is my husband not taking me out? Now, I don't know the full side of the story, so I don't know how she showed up in the first 20 years of their marriage. Maybe he's like, fuck you, I want nothing to do with you. Maybe, you know, she's cheated with 5 other guys and he wants nothing to do. I don't know what their story was as a couple, but I do know that I saw the pain from something so simple. And maybe one of the greatest strategies you can be as a parent is to treat with respect your partner and show your children what a great relationship actually looks like. Like, our kids see us fight, our kids see us happy, our kids see us passionate, our kids see us on fire, our kids see us ignoring each other. Like, our kids get to experience the whole gamut of what those feelings are. And you don't go out on date nights, and you don't go on vacations, and you don't spend money because of 2 faulty stories. And one of those stories is, we can't afford it. And I'm not talking about going to Maui to the 4 Seasons. There were plenty of times in our relationship that would never have even been an option. The idea of spending $1,200 a night in a hotel, like, we'd have never done that. No way. We'd have spent $1,200 the whole fucking month, let alone like in one night on a hotel. Like, that would have never happened. But it's the principle and the pattern. And it's like people thinking they're going to save money when they get a bunch of money. If you don't have the habit of saving money now, you're not going to save more money when you make more money. You're just going to spend more money. You're not going to just fall in love with your partner. You're going to have to find yourself in a decision, a place where you're going to have to decide, listen, this is important to our relationship. And our guilt that we are currently allowing to run the show, and our shame and our fear, which all these emotions are having to go somewhere. And so we project them onto our children. If we don't make a decision to change those, and nothing ever changes. Now, I don't remember, when we first had Bailey, that was right when things started falling apart for us. It was like 2008. Like, I don't remember going on date nights.
I know. I think
during 2008, honestly, 9, and 10, I don't think we did.
We were that young married couple, again, raised in kind of a very conservative Mormon culture where you didn't do that. Like, you'd go on a date maybe once every couple months if grandma wanted to watch your kids. Like, that's just kind of how it was. And so we, as a young married couple, had a kid. I mean, we would go out all the time before we had a kid, and then we had Bailey. And then it was just like, okay, you settle into parenthood, and that's what it is. And I don't even think we realized that we had drifted. And our girls are 4 years apart, so there was like this 4-year period where we were just like sustaining. And like, things weren't bad, but we were just sustaining. And then, interestingly enough, that's when the market crashed. That's when you like fell out of mortgages. That's when we like lost like all the money we had. And all of a sudden it was like, wow, this sustaining is not that fun anymore. Had we had actually reversed it, and when we were first married, continued to date and continued to take time together, I think it wouldn't have been as hard when we kind of lost everything. We would have been like, all right, like it's, you know what I mean? Like,
and we'd have been able to, there would have been way more communication.
I think, but that's the funny thing is I think people have kids, and even if they're like babies or young kids, and they just think, well, I can just take the baby, or I can just take the kid. It's not a big deal. Or we don't need family vacations, or we don't need individual vacations. I'm like, you say that now, but you do that for a period. I mean, we did it for like 4 years. You do that. You imagine couples who do that for a period of 20
years of a habit
Good
of not
Lord,
spending time with each other.
I wouldn't want to go to dinner or on a trip with my husband either. I literally would be calling every single one of my kids like, hey, you want to go to lunch with me? Like, regardless if I was a working mom or not. So I just think you lead by example, you guys. Like, start now. Like, you chose to be married. You chose to have a family. That's great. But there's connection with each of your children, and there's also connection with your spouse. Otherwise, your kids are going to grow, and what have you taught them? You've taught them that, like, you ignore one another, and then you pour all your energy into your kids till they're 90. I mean, I think it's important to keep that connection, but like at some point, it's like you'll always be their mom, but you're not always going to be their parent.
Ooh.
I like that. That just came out.
Listen to you. Say that one more time. You're always going to be their mom.
But you're not always going to be their parent.
But you're not always going to be their parent.
There you go.
Oh my God.
So
well done. That's really deep.
You know what? One other thing that I just want to say out there, like if you're a mom and you're like listening to this and you're like, holy shit, and you've been feeling something in your heart, like, I need to do something for me. And maybe you're like, I don't need to work, but what do I need to do for me? I would encourage you to look into that and follow that voice in your heart to find some purpose and some passion in your life. And that's not going to take away from anything that you will ever give your kids. In fact, it'll give more to your kids. So allow yourself permission to let go of that guilt and find something for yourself before it's too late and your kids are older and you're just feeling left alone and depressed and on some kind of antidepressant medication.
So you have let's shift to this, because one of the ways that I watch you start to become more fulfilled in our relationship is that me and Danielle both have a purpose beyond each other, and we have a purpose beyond our parenting. And that purpose fulfills both of us individually, and then that individual connection with ourself then connects with each other as a couple, and that couple love then spreads down into our children. And I watched this pattern happen. Now, Danielle, you chose to really pursue some passion with hair. It's what you've done with DKW Styling, the creation of the hair extension method, natural bead of rose.
Here's what's crazy is you can find passion in anything. I wasn't always passionate about hair. I wasn't. So there's a lot of women and maybe men who or I'm just going to say specifically to women because I'm not a man.
Sure, go for it.
But I would just say there's a lot of women that are they want to have a purpose, they want to have a passion, and they don't really know what it is. To be honest with you, I didn't even know I was that passionate about hair until I decided to take it on as more than just a hobby. And then as I got really good at my craft, all of a sudden I found that I was very passionate because I knew my shit. And so if you don't know, if you're like, I feel like I get what you're saying, Danielle, and I don't know what my passion is. I don't know what my purpose is. I don't know what to go into. You literally can make anything you're passionate about your purpose and your career and wherever you want it to go. And I think the biggest mistake that women make is just not starting it or not doing it. They always say, well, when my kid is in school, then I'll start something. Or and there's like this soundtrack running in your mind. When this happens, then I'll fulfill this, then I'll find me, then I'll take time for me. And I would just encourage you, like, don't let that voice and that soundtrack sit in your head for 5, 10, 15, 20 years. Like, if you're feeling that, you just need to go. And if you have the willingness to go, you'll figure it out along the way. And I know this. I absolutely know this because that's where I was at.
All right.
You weren't even listening. That was good
shit. I was listening. I was listening passionately. I was actually setting up another live stream to help get some more people connected to this show. We'll set that up here in a second. So this purpose, what I noticed as a husband and what I noticed as a father, when my wife found purpose beyond me and beyond our children, she actually became a better mom. And it sounds weird. It sounds weird to have that be. I actually think she became a better lover and a better mother and a better partner when she found purpose beyond me and beyond the children. And this was not something she always had. I would be at the office and I'd be working. That's
probably why I'm more attractive to you too.
Oh, for sure. Like, well, when we went back in the original days, like, you didn't really take hair seriously. It wasn't like something you were passionate about.
No.
And you didn't definitely feel any purpose with it. There was just something that you were doing. It was like a hobby for you. Yeah. And as I saw her, what I saw starting to happen to her is I saw her starting to find more certainty in herself, and that certainty became very attractive, and that connection to herself and this purpose became very attractive. And when she was with her kids, she was more present, and when she was with me, she was more present because she was feeling more fulfilled. I was no longer the purpose of her life, and her children were no longer the purpose of her life, that she had a purpose that was about Danielle, because before being married and before being a mother, she was Danielle. She was a woman who needed to find a path. Before Danielle and before my children, I was Garrett, and I needed to find a path. And every single day we're finding this path inside of ourselves individually, but we're also searching for it in finding deeper pieces of ourselves as parents, and we're also finding that in deeper aspects of ourselves as a married couple. So this guilt, let's come back to this guilt idea.
I feel like this show should be called Parenting and Purpose.
Parenting and Purpose. Instead of Date Your Wife?
No, this specific.
Oh, this particular one.
This specific episode.
This specific episode is called Parenting with Purpose?
Parenting on purpose or
with purpose, on purpose? I don't know. You look beautiful. Talk to me about this. So, from a female perspective, how did you literally overcome the mommy guilt? Like, give us this idea, because I remember trying to get dates
there's
set up,
so
and
many times, like, you know how everybody has like their stories of like pivotal moments in their life that they're just like a lightning bolt is like, you got this. I remember, and I don't remember specifically how many years ago, but I remember I just was in this phase where I was just like, I can't push my vision because I'd gotten really into my career and I had found a lot of passion and I just was really into it. And I was like, the part of me had so much guilt, even though I felt like I was spending like quality time with my kids and balancing it well. There was so much guilt of like pushing it to the next level, because I was scared that like if I push my business to the next level, then it's going to take away from having kids and I won't sacrifice being a mom. And then I realized I was like this like lightning bolt, like literally like came down and just was like, if you quit now, you're being selfish. You're being selfish to your kids. You're being selfish to others. You're just being fucking selfish. Just quit leaning on this as an excuse. This guilt is just burying me. Like, I felt so heavy. And then the minute I like had this like epiphany or whatever you want to call it, it was just like this weight was lifted off my shoulders. And all of a sudden I gave myself permission to fulfill my purpose and be a mom and be damn good at both of them. And I knew that if I chose to have more children, that I would figure it out along the way. And I was no longer going to live under these terms of this mommy guilt, that I was going to live my life how I wanted to. And I knew that I could do that while being a parent and a mom. So
this is, like, you're passionately declaring this.
Woo!
You're taking a stand for women and finding some purpose.
I feel like, you know, there's a lot of people, there's a lot of women who they're like, well, I don't need to work. And I'm like, honey, I'm not saying you need to work. Trust me, I don't need to work, but I love what I do. And I genuinely believe that, like, I am a better parent because of it. And I don't think I'm a better parent because I'm happy. And happy people are better parents. If you don't have purpose, you're not fucking happy, and kids can sense that. Like, it's like, I can't draw it out any more simple than that. If you're not happy, you're not going to be radiating to your kids. You're not going to be what you should.
So you have a whole lot of parents and a whole lot of couples who are faking happiness, and they're expecting their kids to interpret their fakeness in their happiness as real. Right, it's like sitting in a situation inside the Bible. There's this reference to this idea that when a child asks their father or asks someone that is important to them for bread, why do you give them a stone? And yet this is what most husbands are offering their wives. It's what most wives are offering their husbands. It's what most couples are offering their children. They're saying, hey, listen, here is some truth behind this. Here is how we love you. But the energy that they're actually offering up is a bunch of stones. Here's a bunch of stones. I hope that those fulfill. Yet inside of our family and inside of our marriage, as my wife and I have gotten more and more on the same page with each other, but as we've also gotten more and more okay with the idea of who we are individually, this has opened up a possibility for our children to see a new path for living. Because at the end of the day, this is truly what parenting is. Parenting is about role modeling how to live. Like, if there was one skill set that you could give your children over all skill sets that you could give your children, it's the one skill set, which is how to powerfully live the truth of who they are. But as a parent and as an individual, if you're living in a place of bullshit status, if you're living as a liar, suppressed underneath this burden of stories of what you feel like you have to do, and how you think it's supposed to be, and you're trying to be the parent that everybody thinks is perfect, and you're trying to do this inside of a religious context, underneath a political context, underneath a socioeconomic context, or you're trying to do this a way that everybody else thinks that you should be doing it, what you've actually taken away from yourself is the one gift, which is giving your children an example, not your fucking words, not your preaching, not your quoting of scriptures, not your talking about how things used to be when you were old and how you were young and how grandma used to do it. No, our kids today smell bullshit from miles away. Like, our children are the I generation who are linked directly up. My son is 19 years old. He's part of the millennial generation. The millennials, the last part of that. And then our kids have been raised in technology. My daughter, you got stuck in traffic. And my daughter was Googling it and finding out what was going on with the car accident before you even knew what was going on with the car accident. Like, inside of traffic. Like, our kids have access to information and access to data that we never had access to. And they know when you're fucking lying. So here's a question, Danielle. What tip would you give to a woman who is currently sitting trapped inside of her own guilt stories, is suffocating her own purpose as a woman, is living inside of a story that's got her boxed up? Like, what advice would you give to her? Like, where does she begin to start? Like, she's miserable. She's not happy. Her husband knows she's not happy. The kids know she's not happy. And yet
maybe
she continues.
She's happy, but she's not as happy as she could be.
Okay, let's pretend like she is happy for a little bit.
I even think before I really started kind of my passion with work and kind of felt like my own purpose, I remember thinking like I loved my kids, and there was moments where I felt genuinely happy. Like, I was like, God, I love being a mom, but I kind of felt like there was times I was a little bit depressed and like I felt like something was missing. And I don't know if a lot of women experience this, but I want to just feel, I don't know, I think I just felt like something was missing.
That's it. I was just giving some example on another one of our social media pages, a sample of the show. So you felt like there was something missing, and inside.
What did you ask me specifically?
I asked you, like, what advice would you?
I got ADD because you're like swinging around with your cell phone doing a live.
What advice would you give a woman who's trying to find her purpose? We're wrapping up the show.
What advice?
Like, she's trying to find her purpose.
I feel like I'm giving so much advice. I think you just have to. You have to make the choice over and over again that it's okay. You have to give yourself permission.
Okay.
And I think if you're willing to just start whatever it is that you enjoy doing or whatever, I don't know, I think if you just start, gosh, my advice would be listen to your heart. There you go.
I'm going to give some advice to the men. You ready, men? Take charge, son.
Take a shower?
No, I didn't say take a shower. I said take charge.
I thought you said
it could be take a shower too. If you haven't showered in a while, that might be a good strategy. I'm saying take charge, meaning make this shit happen. Like, don't make it negotiable. Like, interesting enough, as much as my wife's an advocate for date night now, she was not so much an advocate for date night in the beginning. Like, I had to fight for this. Like, I knew that we needed to do things differently.
Now it's
I had
the new
to
norm.
Fight, and now it's normal. My wife
now
would fight
it's been over a weekend,
babysitters. Like, everything. Like, it was on me. Like, Danielle, like, I was the one that started fighting for this to happen. And it's not going to be easy in the beginning. And you're going to have a wife who's dealing with all this guilt, and she's dealing with all this stress and all of these emotions about leaving her children with the kids, or leaving her kids with a babysitter. Or maybe she's like, no, I'm not going to care.com, which, by the way, you could go to care.com, and they're not a sponsor of this show. We've used that as a resource tool. It's how we found the amazing woman, girl that we have now that watches our children. She's amazing. A very powerful resource. Again, we are not a sponsor, affiliate whatsoever with them, but it's a great website, care.com. Maybe a good place for you to start interviewing for applicants to start watching your children so you can go on date night once a week. But fight for it. Gentlemen, fight for it. Like, you can't sit back and hope she's just going to wake up one day. Some of you are in relationships where your wife right now is so stuck and so frustrated, she doesn't know what to do. She needs you to fucking lead. Put your crown on. Pick up your shield and your sword and fight for the shit required to put your relationship back on track. And the only way you're going to do that is by creating the date nights. You want to be a better father? Then date their mother. You want to be a better father? Then make love to their mother. You want to be a better father? Then show them the example of what it is to be a man fighting for a relationship and for a marriage. We were knocking on the door of divorce. Divorce just like everybody else. I've been married and divorced once before. Danielle and I were knocking on the door. This would have been divorce number 2 for me. And we woke up to a possible game that we could fight harder. And as a man, if you need resources and tools to support you with this, I'd encourage you to head to warriorbook.com. This is a place where you can begin your journey as a man to learning to take that kind of stand. Now, we don't have direct resources for the women outside of this podcast right now, but I hope that our show right now inside of this is inspiring you to take some different actions, to do some things differently inside of the way that you look at it. And in today's message really is learning to deal with the guilt and learning to deal with the shame that comes with choosing to put your relationship in front of your children so that you can ultimately become a better parent.
And allow yourself to be happier.
The end. Allow yourself to be happier. The end. That wraps up this show. Here's a couple of things. If you're not currently subscribed to the show, we'd encourage you to do that inside of iTunes, Google Play, Stitcher, or SoundCloud. Leave us a review. We'd love that also. If you'd like access to the videos, action guides, audios, as well as all of the show notes for this particular show, you can head over to dateyourwifenow.com, where all of those resources are available for both this show as well as every other show that we've done here in this episode. We'll be back next week here for episode number 9, and we're going to be diving into the topic of communication. We've got a treat for you next week on that one, and then we'll be back around 2 weeks from now to my favorite topic. We'll be back to sex, my friends. We'll be back to the topic of sex. But have a great rest of your week. Have a great rest of your day. We look forward to having you here on the show next week. Share the show with another couple or another individual you feel might get inspired by it. Also, we'd love more and more couples just like you to participate in this every single week with us. Your topic this week on date night is scheduling regular date nights. That's it. You're going to go on a date night to schedule date nights and talk about the guilt that may be going on for you. My name is Garrett J. I am your co-host, and this is my beautiful wife, Danielle, dropping the bombs today in today's show. Signing off and letting you know we will see you next week.